Hi, my name's Eric Ullman, and I'm here with you to talk about customer understanding. Customer understanding has always been important, but given everything that has been going on in the world lately with COVID-19, now is really a great time to get closer to our customers and to understand some of the challenges that they might now be facing. I'm going to hide my video here. I'll be back at the end, be with you, but let's move ahead. So why might you listen to me? Well, I've worked in high tech most of my career, and customer experience is really career 2.0 for me. I've been a number of things, including a sales engineer, product manager, and even owned a small software company with two partners and 20 employees across 3 different countries. So I understand what it's like to be a small and mid-sized business owner. In fact, in customer experience consulting, I enjoy the most working with small and mid-sized businesses. I've got my LinkedIn down here. We'll hit it again at the end. So what we're going to jump into and talk about today is the role of customer understanding, its importance in business and impact on strategy, why empathy matters so much and why it's important and a necessary tool for seeing things through your customer's eyes. And then finally, I'll share some tools for growing that empathy muscle and finding ways to walk in our customer's shoes. So let's get started with customer understanding. Customer experience, which includes customer understanding, is actually a discipline. It's much more than just being nice to customers. A lot of people don't necessarily think of that. They think of customer experience as support, perhaps, customer care. But it's more than that. And it's more than focusing on our product to provide a pleasant user experience or a UI. That's a lot of times where the focus is on customer experience. But this customer understanding element when it comes to customer experience is so foundational and so important. And really, it should come right at the outset. It should be informing our business strategy and our brand strategy and everything else that comes from it. So many times we'll look at a market and get an understanding of the market, what's the total market value, et cetera, without really understanding why customers are doing things, what are their jobs to be done. And so I want to think just for a little bit about human-centered design because that's so important in customer experience work. You may or may not be familiar with human-centered design, but it's also like customer experience. It's a discipline. It's a way of going about things. And what we're showing here is the famous double diamond of human-centered design. And what we're seeing is time from left to right, or today on through the future. And this is what a project might look like, where first we're spending our effort on discovering everything there is so that we can understand what problem it is we're solving. So we go wide, we look at all the various things, all the various aspects. And then once we see what those are, we narrow down and figure out what it is we are going to be solving for. And then we repeat that process when we think about the solution to the problem that we just figured out. So we go wide thinking of all the different ways we could develop a solution or meet those needs. And then we narrow down to the best way to deliver a solution for those needs. And customer understanding is so important because when we apply it at the right time, it can impact our strategy instead of just the product or the service that we're offering. So when we start thinking about customer understanding way early in the process, we understand things in a way that helps us set the tone throughout the project and understand things that we would miss if we came to start thinking about customer understanding when it came to a user interface for a software product on an iOS device, for example. So thinking about that, it's very different when we do it this way. I want to think for just a moment about how customer understanding, how brand, and how customer experience come together. So the way I think of your brand promise is it's exactly that. It's a promise made. And that promise made is explicit and implicit, right? There are things that we say, our brand attributes that we claim, the language we use on our website, and also those implicit things that our customers hear from their colleagues or from their friends and family who use your products or services. So then we have the customer experience side of the equation. And I like to call this promise kept. In fact, the way I heard this explained about a year ago at a conference was fantastic. Two sides of the same coin: brand, promise made; customer experience, promise kept. Customer experience is us holding ourselves accountable so we deliver on the promise that we made to the customers in the first place. A lot of times we'll see a gap between the promise that's made, between the brand promise, what the expectations of the customer should be, versus what the actual experience is like. And in that gap is where so much of the customer experience is defined. I thought it was going to be like this, but instead it ended up being like this. That's not great. When it comes to customer understanding, empathy is a really key aspect. Empathy is super important to customer experience. I'm going to explain why, but first it's necessary, I think, to define empathy so we're all on the same page here. So empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. And what's so important here that we often don't think about is the share part. It's not just the ability to understand what it is they're going through, but it's the ability to put ourselves in their shoes, to understand things from their situation, because perhaps we've been through it before. Maybe someone is going through looking for insurance after having been through an accident, and they've found that their previous insurance company had some issues that, well, when it came to getting their car fixed, really caused a lot of friction and difficulty, and they were upset. So if someone who has been in that same situation is hearing the story, they understand what this person cares about a lot better when it comes to talking about insurance policies. Brene Brown has this fantastic quote on empathy and how it compares with sympathy. Empathy fuels connection, while sympathy drives disconnection. She's talked about this before, where she describes empathy and sympathy in this way. So sympathy is like, oh wow, you've fallen in a deep hole. That sucks. Whereas empathy is, oh my, you've fallen in a deep hole. Let me get down in there with you. That's the difference between the two. Now, she goes on to say, not because you can't get out of the hole, of course, that would be crazy, but you've been there and you know that this is recoverable. You can understand how they're feeling. I want to talk about empathy in terms of where we are right now in the world with what's going on with the epidemic, the pandemic with COVID-19. I was asked the other day how to think about metrics in this time, and I thought, what really matters right now is empathy, because we are all of us, you, me, our customers out there, going through life in such a different way right now. We're concerned, are things that we're touching safe? Am I going to have a job next week? Is my elderly relative going to be okay? Am I going to lose people I love? These things have raised the stress level incredibly. People are really irritated today by marketing messages, by communications that seem insincere and don't take into account what's really going on. I'll give you a quick example. My utility company needed to replace a power pole on the street, and my power was going to be turned off for most of the day. Well, I got that notification 2 weeks ago, which was also about a week into California's stay-at-home order. I'm coming to you from Oakland, California tonight. And the letter said, power's going to be off middle of the day. Sorry. It didn't say anything about, we realize this might not be the most convenient time because, well, you can't leave the house. It wasn't like I could go down to the cafe and use the Wi-Fi down there. So when I got this letter a week into the stay-at-home order, I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe that they didn't take into account that situation. So they had no empathy for me, that my power was going to be out, I needed to work, maybe had kids at home who needed to be schooled. That's really a different situation. And we need to think about our customers' lives in that way. We need to connect with our customers today in a real way with empathy, where we understand what it is they're going through. We need to ask less and listen more. That's really key right now. It's really important. I work for a voice of customer platform company, and we have some customers who are turning off their surveys right now. And in certain cases, that's really the right thing to do. But in others, it's time to lean into listening. For our large restaurant customers, for example, are really paying attention to what their customers are saying in feedback right now. Were the employees covering their face with masks? Were the conditions sanitary when they came to pick up their food? How did they feel about that? All of that is so important right now. But when we're a small and mid-sized business, we don't necessarily have the capabilities that a large sandwich chain, for example, might have to survey and listen to their customers. And so I'm going to talk with you a little bit about some tools that you can put into use for connecting with customers, and also thinking about what that means in terms of where we are today with the pandemic and the stress that people are under. So let's just look at some best practices in customer understanding. One of the one of the first things to think about doing is we want to collect information that comes from our customers or feedback that comes from our customers, not just when we ask, but anytime they want to talk. And there are a few ways to do that, which we'll get into a little bit later. So solicited and unsolicited feedback are both important. We want to seek to understand their needs, their jobs to be done. There's a fantastic video you'll have to go see, and I'll share a link to it at the end. Clayton Christensen, who's a professor at Harvard Business School, uses the example of a milkshake that someone is buying on their way to work and what job they are hiring that milkshake to do. Well, our customers do exactly that. They hire our products and our services to do a job. An example would be, I don't need Adobe Photoshop. I need to do all the creative work that Adobe Photoshop allows me to do. I need to create things if I'm a designer. I need to create things for my clients, things maybe make the world a more beautiful place and make people smile. Those are my needs. Those are a little bit different. Today, if I go and pick up, using our example earlier, if I go and pick up food from a restaurant, my needs are a little bit different today. I'm going to the restaurant because things are insane at home. I can't cook dinner another night. I'm going to lose my mind. And I have all these needs about hygiene. I need things to be clean. I need to feel like I'm safe doing this. I'm not putting myself and my family at risk. So we need to seek to understand what it is the customer is relying on whatever our product or service is to do. One of the other best practices is where we have leaders connect with customers daily, certainly as frequently as possible, but one a day is a great place to start. And we'll talk about some tools around that. Engage and evaluate feedback across multiple customer listening posts. Listening posts are all the different places we can gather feedback from our customers, both solicited and unsolicited feedback. And we want to have multiple places where that feedback comes in. And we'll talk about that too. So one of the first tools I would like to suggest is engaging your front line. Now that can mean things based on the size of your business. If you have salespeople, if you have support people, people who are engaging with your customers, perhaps someone in a finance department who is calling to talk to a customer who is overdue on their last bill. That could be an example. Those frontline employees who actually connect with customers as a regular part of their job. Now, if your small business is very small, a micro small business, and it's just you, which is a situation I have been in as well. My wife has a part-time employee, so hers is very small. In that case, you're the front line. Hopefully you're engaging with customers. But assuming you're talking to some employees, get together with your employees and have them tell you what it is they know about the customer's journey, what it's like to be a customer of your business. So what are those customers trying to accomplish? Where is it that they encounter friction along the journey? What did they do before the employee was engaged with the customer? Are they contacting a support employee because there was some kind of failure or problem, or they're stuck with a product or service and don't know how to proceed? In that case, by the way, two experienced failures, perhaps. One, the initial that caused the customer to call, and perhaps second, if the solution cannot be provided to the customer. So that could be a lot of friction. That employee understands what it's like when the customer can't get their problem solved, or understands what it's like when they can. And there's a recovery situation where perhaps the customer was upset and now they're happy. Anyhow, talk to employees, have them explain those stories. One thing that I really want to share about this is it's so important today to think about our employees with that same empathy that we're thinking about our customers. Our employees are working today, they're wondering, are they going to have a job next week or next month? What does this all mean for our economy? Is my job possibly at risk? So here our employees are doing this fantastic work so that we can keep functioning, so that our customers can continue to operate, can continue to use the products and services they count on. Using that empathy with employees is so important. And really this engagement of the front line, this using voice of the employee in lieu of voice of the customer to help understand what customers' lives are like, This is a really key thing for employees right now because it allows us to help them feel valued as well. So next, calls, conversations, interviews. These are those direct connections that we make with our customers. So I want to implore you as a leader and any other leaders in your business to contact at least one customer a day. Now that might be an email outreach. It can't be a form email. It's got to be something that is personal. It's got to be an outreach and, hey, I'm the CEO of X company, and with all that's going on right now, I'm reaching out to some customers to hear how they're doing. Please, if you feel like it, give me a call back. My number is this. Give them a number, give them a place to reach you by voice, or call some customers. Perhaps you have that ability. Perhaps you have salespeople that interact with customers on a day-to-day basis. When you talk to them, ask them about them. Set your intention. Your intention should be to understand. Your intention should not be to sell something or to pitch something. They should be doing most of the talking. In fact, you don't even want to correct them. If they have a concept or an understanding about your product or service that's mistaken, just let them share that. Allow them to continue sharing. Because if we interrupt and correct them, then they start thinking, wow, what else am I getting wrong? Maybe I shouldn't share as much. And we lose the opportunity to hear what else it is they might tell us, what those gems are that we weren't going to find out about. So really just listen. If they do say something that's incorrect, make a note of it and be sure to follow up with them. Hey, I wanted to let you know when we were talking, I heard you say this, and I wanted to let you know I made sure that this is in fact the case instead. And so you can correct that. So here's another tool, something called a fishbowl. And I say, are you feeling bold? Because this can be a little bit challenging. It can be difficult emotionally. This can be a real test of how good our listening skills are and how good we are at not taking things personally, especially in small and mid-sized businesses. I've been the person who made the decision that was not great for my customers long term. And it was in this kind of situation that I found out about it. So that's always hard, hearing when we make a decision, it seemed right at the time, but right now, wow, I would have done that differently if I knew a different thing at that point in time. So how does a fishbowl work? We gather some customers together, multiple customers. We can do this on Zoom or on Google Meet or whatever it is tools you have access to. And then we invite key people from our company, employees, to listen. Now, those folks don't get to talk. They only get to take notes. And then a moderator or a facilitator will give the customers prompts that they can then discuss like they're having coffee or like they're sitting around someone's living room. And so some examples, a bad day is when, and then the customers pick up the conversation and they talk amongst each other. They tell each other, and the employees that are listening, listen and take notes. Some other questions could be, where I'm challenged the most is, or when things are going well, or it's like this doing business with our company. And then let them fill in the blanks and let them have that conversation. Some ground rules for Fishbowl. I mentioned these before, but I just want to be sure to touch on them again. So the facilitator should prepare some questions ahead of time. And the question should be about the customers and their lives, not about your product, not about your service. We're not asking them to be our product managers. We're asking them to tell us what it's like to be in their shoes. They do all the talking. We create a safe space for them. We don't interrupt. We don't talk over them. We don't correct them. No talking on the employee side. The facilitator is the only other individual who should be talking. And then finally, afterwards, what were the themes that came up? What are the opportunities for improvement? And this is conversation you could have with the customers. That would be a customer co-creation opportunity to think about what solutions might look like to some of the things that came up, to understand what the themes were. Wow, communication's an issue. Okay, interesting. Or our marketing is painting a rosier picture than what most of our customers are experiencing. Maybe we need to be a little more careful in the language we're using. I want to talk also about some other customer listening posts that are available to you, a couple things to think about. So social media is really important today, and I think it's seen a little bit of a resurgence given that we really can't leave the home very much right now. Find out where your customers are on social media. Maybe it's a forum for small business IT folks. Maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's Instagram, whatever that might be. And you want to be there where they communicate about you. You want to categorize and then act on what it is you learn. So this is that unsolicited feedback that you can get. It's super powerful to find out what customers are saying about you when they talk to each other and to pick up on that. You don't need to have powerful text analytics tools to be able to read some of those verbatims and learn some very interesting things about what it's like to do business with your company. Another thing that's really important, another customer listening post, is to make sure you have some kind of always-on method that allows customers to provide feedback when it's convenient for them. And I say this because so many times we ask them and it's the wrong time. They don't have time to do that right now. It's not top of mind right now. I mean, we've all been to a website where we go to find some information, and within 10 seconds on the website, there's a pop-up, hey, would you like to give us your feedback? Seriously, give me a break. Make it easy for them to provide feedback. Maybe that's a contact email address or a phone number, but make it easy for them to find. You want them to be able to give you that feedback. Feedback is a gift. So those are some of the tools that we can use, but I also want to leave you with some thoughts on what to do after you get this feedback, after you have this customer understanding. So what are they counting on us to do? So we need to seek to understand at a root level what it is that's allowing the experience to not be great. And root causes typically are not things like, oh, we didn't have budget or we didn't have the resources. No, the root causes tend to be policies and processes, things that get in the way, things that prevent us from providing great experiences. So a root cause, for example, one way to think about that, and a common example of getting to a root cause is when a car won't start and asking, well, why didn't it start? And why was that the case? And why, and why, and why, until we get back to the root cause. Sometimes we end at a symptom, and that is a sign that we need to keep going back a little further. So root cause analysis is critical and something there's a ton of information available for. Act on what you learn to improve the customer experiences, right? If all we do is listen and we don't do anything about it, there's really no point. If we want to survey our customers, that's great. I encourage it. But if you're going to reach out to your customers and ask for their opinion, ask for their feedback, we owe it to them to do something with it. Otherwise, we're just wasting their time and frankly, ours. Finally, close the loop with customers. And what I mean by that is when a customer provides feedback, they're opening a loop, they're opening a dialogue. And we want to close that loop with them. We want to thank them for the feedback. We want to let them know what we're doing about it. And ultimately, we want to let them know what we did and how valuable their feedback was in helping us accomplish that and helping us redesign an experience, improve an experience, or create an entirely new experience with our products or services. So that closing the loop is so important, and it makes a customer for life when we do that. So our customers are counting on us to do this. Sorry for popping my screen there. Let's see if, there we go. I think I have the camera back now. So I just want to offer up some resources. Wow, there's 2 pictures of me here. That's not really useful. Some things you can find. Hopefully you can pause the recording and read these links okay if you need to get these things. Sometimes it might be just easier to search. Clayton Christensen on the milkshake job. That's a fantastic video. It's not very long, and it gives such a great understanding how we might think about things differently. Plenty of details out there on running Fishbowls, really to help you get started, to help you feel comfortable in facilitating one of those. And then finally, I would encourage you to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love making connections, especially with small business folks and like-minded people who care about customers and care about human beings. And really, that's what this work is all about at the end. So I want to thank you for being here. Please stay safe out there. I wish the best to you and your family. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this was in some way helpful. Take care.